Hello.
Hey, what's happening?
Welcome, one and all. Welcome back to another Friday stream with Trotec.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, I feel like we've done this enough times now that I can be a little bit more relaxed. I always, in the beginning, I remember always telling myself, get yourself psyched up on the way into work and saying like, oh, and our good friend USB Cables joined us.
I love him. We were just talking about President Business, so
yeah, feel a strong connection to Mr. USB Cable.
That's weird.
That's all right. You know what, Mike?
What you get for using an Apple, I guess.
I was gonna say, you know what? It's just we have your voice and we have your experience, and that's the big. There he is. All right. Doug, welcome back. So happy to have you, man. Hello and welcome to everyone who's watching. In fact, you are just in time. Unless you're watching this again later on YouTube, in which case, set aside an hour, make a snack. It's gonna be fun. We've got a really cool stream for you today. Today's going to be a lot of fun because we are digging into a topic that's been requested of us by our audience. We're going to have a guest. If anybody saw our emails part of this, we're going to have our guest Lindsey from Grow & Co. popping in here in a little bit. They are a really cool business out of Alberta. Pardon me, out of Calgary. You can check them out on Instagram. I made sure to include the link to their Instagram on all of our emails. You can check them out. You can just search Grow & Co. They make some really, really great stuff. But again, we'll let Lindsey talk about that when she gets here. The really exciting thing, they've just upgraded to their very first Trotec laser. It's a 400, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to get to ask Lindsey all about sort of, what prompted them to make that switch, pros and cons on both sides of the fence, all that sort of cool stuff. We have a little bit of a presentation for you guys. It's going to be fun. But first and foremost, I know most of you joining us have very likely met my two co-hosts here before, but just in case, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Clark, who's directly on my six.
You did that good, Jimmy.
Thanks.
Probably. Oh, look, I did it right.
Yeah, you're doing it good too.
I know, it's so hard to do. James is down there. Yes. Yeah. Like I practiced.
We've been doing these for over a year now. Like March, I think of 2020. So I'm getting used to it.
It's really cool. I also think that it's nice that we've our backgrounds are so disparate that it really looks like, either we're all working from home or we have the most diverse office in the world kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe the most comfortable office.
Yeah, I mean, certainly.
It's usually so early in the morning. If I was to have gotten to work for these live streams, it'd be like, I'd be kind of bleary eyed.
James would have had to get up at around 8 in the morning or something.
No, it's past 8 now.
8 in the morning now, yeah. I should say, so Mike Clark is our salesperson for Ontario, a good portion of the Maritimes, but also he's just one of our resident experts when it comes to all things laser.
The world's resident expert.
I was going to say, North American champ, several years running. James is our Trotec representative for the West Coast. He is out in the Vancouver, British Columbia, Burnaby area. Also has been in the engraving business, in the creative doing stuff business for a long, long time. So any questions you guys have for us, as it pertains to Corel Draw, designing for lasers, working with lasers, whatever it might be, you just lob them at us. Tough questions, easy questions. We love easy questions, underhand softballs as much as possible. You just keep them coming. We're here for you guys. So
dealing with difficult customers.
Absolutely. Running live streams.
Quoting obscure RFQs.
I think we're going to, those are always tricky. I think we're going to get kicked off on the presentation here, but the presentation is just a framework, you guys. This is a chance for you guys to ask us questions. So I hope you'll feel free to interrupt us at any time. We're here for you guys. So let me pop this up. You'll also see up here in the top corner, I don't know, I can't quite see what he's running just yet, but we've got, oh, never mind. That's going to be a surprise for spoilers. Lev is going to be running some cool samples for us going forward here. He's in the background, and he'll be chipping in from time to time, so we appreciate that.
Well, make sure you clean the machine when you're done, okay?
That was my fault, Mike. I apologize. Yeah. I was cutting something the other day on the honeycomb table. I didn't even take the honeycomb table out to check underneath. I really always do that, as it turns out. Okay, so as we said, today we're going to do a comparison between hobby and production lasers. Hobby and production, just, you know, to sort of set the parameters before we kick it off here. These are just like general terms. So, you know, the presentation is going to define them in a particular way. But, you know, I'd be curious, maybe I'll throw it to James first. Sort of how would you distinguish between, let's say, not essentially wanting to keep it to these terms exactly, but like, you know, we'd consider what we do at Trotec more of a production laser. Like, where do you draw the distinction between what's a production laser and what's any other laser kind of thing?
Well, I mean, production laser versus hobby laser, production versus scientific laser. I don't know. But as far as laser cutters, laser engravers go, there's production grade lasers that love being run, 6 to 12, 15, 24 hours a day, I would say is a production grade laser, something that can take the abuse of heavy duty production, something that's going to make you money. Mm-hmm. Like, after all, if you're making money, you need a production laser. If you're not making money, you need a hobby laser.
Right. So for you, it's a lot about like, it's the activity you're sort of designing. When you're picking a laser, you really have to think carefully about what you tend to do with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we all know, like, we love to play, I don't know, croquet, and we buy the Walmart croquet set. And so then there's the people who play croquet and have, zillions of dollars, a sheik or something, and they might spend $25,000 on a croquet set. But really, croquet is just a hobby for us, and that's the same. If you want a laser to make little parts for your model railroad or something like that, and you're not interested in making money with the machine, then unless you have zillions of dollars and you're a sheik, well, then that's what the hobby lasers are for. And that's they do fill a space, and Trotec lasers aren't really for that. Of course, I have customers who've bought Trotec lasers to make parts for your table games or something like that, and people are happy to do that. They love to have the best of the best. That's why we buy Apples and Mercedes, right, Mike? So I mean, that's sort of my take on it.
No, I agree. I think that's a very good analogy. I think about, like, bear in mind also, we are also fans of hobby lasers. Like, James owns more than one.
My wife has a homeschool school, and we installed a little hobby laser in her, because, I mean, Trotec wasn't about to give us a laser to put down there, and so we put a hobby laser down there. So I have lots of experience with hobby lasers, and every time I use one, I wish I had a Trotec.
Yeah.
but it does fill a space. Their little co-op school didn't have enough money to spend on it. It was just only like 11 families, and so it didn't make sense.
I think about too, actually, Mike Clark. I don't know if you guys, this is a bit of Mike Clark trivia for you, but he's a very avid and capable cyclist. And so I think that's a very good analogy too, where, like, you can go to Walmart and buy $100 mountain bike, or you can go to a bike store and buy, a proper road bike, right? And you really do feel and it's not to say, as James is saying, like, somebody like Mike might not be competing in the Tour de France, but it doesn't mean that he can't enjoy having a really capable machine, available to him when he wants to. But yeah, Mike, would you sort of answer sort of along the same lines? If you're sort of drawing that distinction, is there anything that you would add in terms of, like,
Well, I think probably, I mean, because this certainly, for anybody that's starting up a business, this is always going to be one of the big questions. The dilemmas that they have is, do you start out small and sort of take baby steps, or do you just jump in and buy what you consider to be the appropriate machine for producing product? And I think the thing to remember is, what I tend to find is that people that buy like a small type machine aren't as worried about their costs.
Right.
as people are that are buying a production machine. And you know, when I talk about when we talk about cost, I think the thing to remember that it isn't just the cost of the machine, right? Like when you're starting a business, the cost of the machine or whatever, that's such a small, it is a large, you know, decision, but the big decision really is just getting into business, you know. And
that's true.
Like you have to make a huge investment in your life. And so you know, I think the problem sometimes is some people can't make that decision. And therefore they buy the small machine and you know, then the question is, are we really making a total commitment to the business? And I think when we get people in, like I had some people in this morning who had made the lady had bought the machine just as because of COVID, and she wanted something to do and she didn't want to spend a lot of money and everything like that. And now the business is running and she's going, oh my God, I can't use this machine to do anything. And so I started asking her what was the process involved in producing something. And, you know, she said, well, I get burn marks and then I got to try to rub them off and then I got to sand them off because they don't go clean and everything like that. And I'm, you know, what really starts to shine a lot of times when you're looking at this stuff is how much of the labor is going into producing that product. And I think that's really what a production machine is that we're really starting to look at how this machine is producing product for us as fast as we can with as minimal as input that we put into it, right? And I think that's really what she was having a dilemma with. And that's the dilemma. And I remember a story, you know, I can tell you a story of a guy who came into the showroom and turned to me and said, either I buy your machine or I get out of business. He said, because I can't spend the amount of time that I'm spending hand finishing this, throwing 20 of these in the garbage because they don't measure up to what I expect that it should go out. And that's really the difference between to me, a production and a hobby machine is that hobby machine, you're getting along, you're making do, you know, it's an extra, you know, if it takes you 5 minutes to finish a piece and, you know, it takes you 3 minutes to finish the next one and 30 seconds to do the next one. And there's just inconsistencies. That's not production. Production is, you know what, it takes a minute to do the piece. I pull it out of the machine. It's ready to go. I put it in the box or I take it to wherever else to assemble it to make something different. And that's really the difference between to me, a production machine and a hobby-based machine. You know, you're looking at making money. You have to make this much money every month to justify the machine, to justify the business. And you need to pump the product out. And it's not an easy decision to make for people because a lot of people are starting at zero and they're trying to go to a certain level.
Sure.
You know? But then I ask people, I say, you know what, if you're going to spend $9,000 or $10,000 on a so-called hobby machine, you know what, if you lease to own the machine, that's 2 years worth of payments.
Yeah.
Right. And you
imagine the money you can make on
a machine.
Well, and I want to pop back here. So I think we even had it up once or twice already, but like we had a good, you know, point here by Trotec Botswana, who mentions that even so the Roi Jet is, if you're not familiar with Trotec machines, but it is, you know, basically our smallest machine. And they make the point that like when when the machine is conceived right from the very word go as with that sort of production mentality in mind, even the very smallest machine can still have that same sort of quality, that same sort of reliability, regardless of, you know, whether it's a big one, small one. I mean, we're not just talking about huge machines that are,
but just to make
make
a point on that, and just what he's talking about is that his machine is working for the product that he's doing, and it's doing the proper job.
Yes,
and that's very, very important. And I would question whether, and a lot of people question whether a Roi Jet can do the job that they want it to do. And it can in certain situations, and people can be successful using it. But I can make a lot of people that come in that want to run product, and the Roi Jet is not the right machine, right? And I think this is really, again, another scenario where this is why we want people to come into the showroom. because we need to, the education, and this is why we do the webinars, is because it's the education that allows people to assess, the choice that they're making in the equipment they're going through. Like a ray jet is fine if you want to cut out 3 millimeter type Baltic birch or something like that. But if you want to, maybe if you went to a Speedy 100, maybe the edge will be cleaner. Maybe you'll be able to do it faster. Maybe again, there's less process going on and involved in that. If somebody wants to do, maybe you might want to do 6 millimeter. Well, the ray jet's not for 6 millimeter material, right? So again, these are things that need to be, addressed, when you're thinking about it. So, and then that's why I say that's where you get back to the same, comment I made before. Hobby laser makes it easy for you to do some things without having to think a lot about this sort of stuff.
Once you experiment, right? Those first few steps,
you go into production. I mean, now we're thinking about cost. We're thinking about, how fast does this do? Like if somebody comes into the office and says, I need to produce this product in 30 seconds or I don't buy your machine. Well, that's production. That's somebody who has a flow, has a cost in mind of what needs to be, that product needs to be generated a certain amount of time because they need a certain ROI on that product, right? And that's the difference. The hobby machine means a lot more hand finishing, a lot more labor, a lot slower than say a Trotec machine.
Yeah. And we don't, and it's important to mention that we don't say like hobby is our best word that we have for it, but we don't mean it in like a defamatory way. We just mean that like, it's just like sort of like a business versus, leisure kind of distinction. But in that same sort of,
I'm sorry, Dawn, before you go, you know what? It's like going to buy a drill or like buy a good bike or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what? I can go out. I don't go and buy a $500 drill to do a couple of drill holes here, and once every 6 months I pull the drill out, right? But if it's something that I'm relying my business on, and I got to get product out the door, I want something reliable. I want something that performs, and I want it to be what I do today is the same as what I do tomorrow. If I do 100 coasters, every coaster is going to look exactly the same. Right. I don't want to do 100 coasters and throw 20 in the garbage because I only bought enough material to be able to do those 100 coasters. Now I got to order more coasters because the machine didn't do the consistent quality that I want.
I think, to that end, I think I would completely respect anyone who was watching the stream and said, but the three of you work for Trotec. That's a very fair, that's a very fair point. I would like to bring in, so Lindsey has joined us. How are you, Lindsey?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you. Just really quick, I'm not sure that I know you're based out of Calgary, so I'm not sure if you will have had the chance to meet them before. But Mike and James and myself, I'm out of Mississauga. Mike is out of Mississauga here with me, and James is out of our BC office. I don't know that.
And we're better looking than Renee is.
I was going to say, Renee, who's with our Calgary office, wasn't able to join us today. But
yeah, I met Renee.
Okay, good.
Lindsey's on a bit of a time crunch today, so I'm not gonna waste a moment that we have with her. I think one thing really quickly though, I spent the last couple of days, sending out emails, inviting people to the stream today, and it means that I got to spend a bunch of time on your Instagram, and I would really love if you could tell everybody who's watching, all about Grown Co, sort of what is Grown Co, and I would again just like Grown Company on Instagram. Absolutely check it out if you haven't seen it before. I think Lev's going to bring it up for us here. Yes, Grown Company. Thank you so much. Don't miss out. They make some really cool stuff. I'd love if you could tell us a little bit more about the business, though. I'd like to hear from you.
Sure. So we've been in business for 6 years. My business partner and I started out when we were on our maternity leaves and just out of our basements. Everything kind of started out being hand painted, and we had a Cricut, and that's kind of where everything started with growth charts specifically. And then we just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then the last couple of years, we were able to move into an actual shop. And the busier we got, we thought like a laser was always kind of in the back of our mind. That was something that we wanted to strive to get. And we ended up purchasing a glow forge last year. Because we were just a little bit gun shy with the Trotec. We had looked into it.
Sure.
But we bought the Glowforge, and it was great in terms of the fact that it kind of let us kind of wet our whistle a little bit with laser cutting and just kind of seeing what it allowed us to do. But it was just far, far, far too slow. And then that's kind of why we switched over to a Trotec.
Very cool. My understanding is that you guys are sort of it's still a pretty recent purchase, right? Like you kind of just received it in the last week or two, if I'm not mistaken, or
I feel like it's been about a month.
Okay.
I think. I don't think it's been much longer than that, but yeah, it's still pretty recent.
Time flies when you've got a great So I wanted to be able to ask you, so you talked about being gun shy a little bit on the Trotec. This is a question that we hardly ever get to ask our customers, but we're always so interested to ask. So I hope you won't mind. What was it about, let's say, lasers in general that attracted you to wanting a laser? Because for us, it's difficult, right? We have the opportunity to talk to so many different people who come through our door, but one wants to do woodworking and the next wants to make promotional items. And it's tough to know it's tough to get a good sense, I think, at least for me, of what the pulse is out there, amongst businesses for, hey, you should own a laser because. So like, regardless of Trotec or Glowforge, what was that thing that made you think like, you know what, I think a laser might be a good investment for us? Like that would help us sort of build.
Yeah. So we, for a while, had been outsourcing. We used to cut and stain all of our wood ourselves out of our garages. And then we ended up outsourcing that. So we weren't able to do custom cuts or anything like that anymore. And we didn't want to be cutting in the shop. It's just way too messy. And so we actually had someone that we had outsourced some cutting with a CNC machine, but we just weren't able to get the detail that we wanted. And a lot of our items that we cut are quite small. And so that's kind of why we looked into the laser specifically, because it did allow us to do custom cuts, small detailed cuts. And then also it allowed us to just expand what we offer, because before we were limited to just basically our standard size pieces that we were having cut for us.
That makes sense. I think that's something I think it's pretty safe to say. I mean, I'll turn to James and Mike for this certainly, but I feel like, when I was having the opportunity to talk with customers sort of more directly, that's one of the things I think we hear a lot, that, one of the best reasons I think people consider a Trotec is they're doing a lot of outsourcing, and they realize that bringing that in-house, if you have the capacity for it, can actually be a huge money savings for your business in the long term, even if you end up having to do a little bit more, manual work sort of in-house, as you say.
Yeah, and we actually had outsourced some of our laser cutting to someone who has a Trotec.
Oh, good. Okay.
So we still use them for some of it, but yeah, this just kind of allowed us to say, okay, like we're already outsourcing this. We're paying X amount. If we have it, over time, it's going to pay for itself easily. So. Absolutely.
One thing I did want to ask then, so you mentioned about the Glowforge being a little bit slow. And I want to just be sure that this doesn't come off as, we have a Glowforge here in the office. If you walk into the next room beside me, you can see it. I mean, like, we like these machines. It's just,
it's
like
great. It's very user friendly.
Absolutely. There are empirical differences. It's the same with like CNCs. We've gotten the chance to talk to customers who use principally CNCs and might have a laser. Some of them don't. And really, as far as we're concerned, I think they're complementary more than they are sort of, antagonistic, if anything. Certain things do, stuff better than other things. That's the most generic comment I've ever made in my whole life. So the thing I would say though is that, one indisputable fact is, the Glowforge is a little bit slower. And I'm curious about, what was that stage that your business hit? I don't know, it might be tough to quantify, but what made you sort of, turn to your partner and say, like, maybe we should consider getting something that's a little bit faster? Like, was there a day, or was there a certain project? Was there a certain product? Like,
I mean, over Christmas, it was.
Sure.
It was just like constant, like that was all I was able to do all day. We were basically slowed down completely. Like it was the bottleneck of our operation, was just getting things through on the laser. Engraving was incredibly slow. And I was having a ton of reject stuff. And so it was just like, you know what? The Glowforge was great in terms of like it's almost more like a crafting type thing, right? Like I kind of equate it to like the Cricut.
Sure.
Yep.
And then we have a Cricut, but then we upgraded to a plotter, which is much much faster and much more efficient, right? So same kind of thing. Like I said, it was a really good stepping stone in terms of like I would never have invested personally because we ended up with the Speedy 400, right? With the 120 watts. So if we had gone straight to a Trotec, we probably would have done like a smaller introductory one. But after having the Glowforge, we were like, nope, go big or go home. We're getting all of it. And we really wanted the speed and the size because for us, that was the biggest difference, right? Was basically trying to make things more efficient.
Right. And those two sort of parameters are why you're upgrading, right? Is more speed, more size. So, I felt like this tied in really great to just before you joined us, Lindsey, Mike was sort of describing, well, Mike and James both, I think, what might prompt someone to, look at is a, Glowforge or something of that, style suitable for my business, or is the Trotec more of a suitable thing? And I think you represent what is a growing area of the market that we didn't really touch on, which is I think a lot of businesses maybe start as like a side project or something for fun with the Glowforge, and then suddenly when it takes off, it's at that point that someone like yourself says like, oh wait, no, there's actually there's more of an opportunity here than even I realized, kind of thing, right? And then
I mean it's endless, really. I mean, you can literally make anything.
I love lasers.
Yeah, they're super fun.
Absolutely. So did you have any, and forgive me, I don't mean to, James and Mike, feel free to jump in at any time. I don't mean
No, this is good stuff.
I love to talk. This is why I'm good for this job. I was going to ask, so, as much as is possible, what sort of background did you have prior to coming into this business? I mean, I ask because I'm curious to sort of let people know, just because you work with a Trotec doesn't mean it's not user-friendly. You know what I mean? It's certainly, I think one thing you can say for a lot of things like the Glowforge is they do have a great user experience, particularly when you're first getting started. Yeah. But just because something is a production machine doesn't mean that it's complicated or tough to use necessarily, right? Like, do you come from a background of graphic design or anything like that? I mean, like the hand painting that you guys do is like pretty impressive, I would say, like watching those videos. Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm crafty, but I'm definitely not techie. That is for sure.
Fair enough.
I have a background in business. I was a mortgage specialist before I had my kids. And then once I had my kids, I just decided we had started Grow & Co. and it kind of was growing. And I just decided that this was better for our lifestyle. So yeah, I have absolutely no experience in graphic design. One of the girls who works for us actually does, which has been helpful. But I mean, truthfully, like it's a learning curve, of course, but it's not scary in a way that you can't get it.
Yeah, when you started sort of getting serious with it, were you afraid it was going to take up all of your time, or were you not even thinking about that because you were having a great time?
Yeah, no, if anything, it was taking up less time because the Glowforge was just like, for example, a cutting board that would take me 45 minutes to engrave. I can now engrave 4 cutting boards at the same time in 12 minutes. So it's just like, it takes up so much less of my time.
But you like the actual business, like when you started the actual business, like a lot of people are thinking, okay, I want to get into business, and I want to do something creative, and the laser has such an appeal for that. Now, but the actual business itself, did you find like when you started the business and you switched over to Grow & Co., were you like before you started making the heavy commitment that I want to do this full time, were you afraid it was going to take up a lot of your personal time?
No, because I love what I do. Like I love and so it truly doesn't feel like work to me. Like I feel like I just get to craft all day.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that people do that they don't necessarily love, but they might be good at, like say accounting. Maybe some people love it. I mean, I can't picture myself having any fun doing accounting. I mean, no offense to any accountants out there, but
thank God somebody does. Thank God.
Yeah.
I'd be in big trouble. Yeah,
I do have an accounting background, and I also enjoyed that. So
okay, yeah, I don't know how, but God bless you.
This is much more fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the marketing people in Trotec say. They love Trotec because they don't have to do marketing. They can run the laser all day in the showroom.
And it
great.
Genuinely,
and dirty things up for Mike.
Exactly.
I have a
job
that
right,
is like beyond description. I have such a great job. I would say though, I think James touches on a really good point, which is to say that I'm interested to ask Lindsey, certainly, what advice you would give to other small businesses, but I think also I'm curious, to sort of touch on what James is talking about, where, I'm not really sure how to phrase this. Mike, maybe you can help me. I'm sort of wondering around this idea of like, a production laser will certainly help you, but I feel like you have to have a certain level of sophistication in coming to it, that like, just because it's a faster laser, it won't solve the problem for you. Like, Lindsey mentions about having a business background and stuff, right? Like you kind of have to know what it is you want to make prior to, like, just having the laser isn't the whole, just buying the $500 drill doesn't build the house for you kind of thing, right?
No,
like,
and then that's why I say, I mean, you have to give credit to people like Lindsey and everything like that to make that jump. She's made a couple of big moves in her life that they're life changing, right? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, and I, it's a very, very difficult decision, and that's why I say buying the laser isn't just the only thing. Buying the cutter isn't the only thing. I mean, for her to make that decision with small children and everything like that. I mean, I have my lady up in Mississauga Beach that that I've watched her grow, and she did the same sort of thing. Had the cricket, bought the 300, bought another 100, and she seems to be going like this because of the commitment. It's not an easy thing to do, and we don't. Anything that we say here, I always tell people, we're just trying to help out. I mean, but it's a large decision for people. I don't wish it on anybody sometimes, because they have to make it. People in today that she's pregnant and she's going to buy a machine to get her business going even greater. And, it's not an easy thing to do. So
that's what I said. I mean, you can see from, like Growing Company makes great products, which always helps, I think. But, the bigger thing is, like, you can hear in what Lindsey says that, like, in the beginning, it's still a lot of commitment, right? Like you spend a lot of time, building the business up. And I always caution people, having started a small business myself in the past, don't start a small business as a way to only have to work, on weekends or like for a couple of hours a day, because like, as you can see from Lindsey's experience, like there is opportunity out there for somebody who is entrepreneurial and creative and wants to get out there and do it. But like, I imagine like it takes a lot of hard work in those first few years.
Yeah, I mean, you're always working.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, like I said, it doesn't feel like work, right?
If you can pick the right thing, for sure. Yeah, that's a smart.
Yeah, I mean, I always use the example of when I had one gentleman came in years ago, and I use the example all the time. And he came into me and said, either I buy your laser or I get out of business, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem, he was spending 80% of his time trying to get product produced, where he needed to be spending 80% of the time doing marketing, doing artwork, doing billing, doing shipping and everything like that. You want the laser machine, you want your production equipment doing work for you, and it's eliminating that labor input. It's making it easier for you, right? So you can do the more important things in the business, because you have to produce product, but there's so many other things that go into the business, as Lindsey can attest to. You've only got so many hours in the day, and you got to do everything. You got to be a jack of all trades. Absolutely. And so you have to have time to do everything, right? So, you can't spend a lot of time on just one thing, right? You've got to be able to multitask.
I think that's really, really important advice for someone trying to start out a business, is that it really is all the things.
Yeah.
You have to kind of manage and balance all of that. And if there's something that you're not strong in, I think it's important to find someone who is, like a partner, or if you outsource it or something like that. I just think that you're not going to be successful if you're not doing the full rounded picture of things, right? You can't just be producing and not selling, or not marketing, or not keeping your books in line. It's kind of all of it, right?
And that's why we get an accountant, because none of us are very good at keeping books and everything.
Also, right. Yeah.
We're good at making money, but we're not good at, making sure that everything balances out and everything. And that's why we outsource that product. We don't want to learn that, right?
Yeah. So, somebody gives us the money for the machine, and then we just sort of turn and go like, who should I give this to? I need an adult.
Exactly.
So in that sort of vein, Lindsey, and again, I know you probably have to run pretty soon. You just let us know when, and that's totally okay. One of the questions I wanted to be sure to ask you, again, as I say, in that same sort of area, is if you were speaking to, Growing Company in the second or third year of your existence, or somebody who was in a similar situation to where you were, would you be able to sort of give them an idea of when they should think about buying like a production or a hobby laser, like what's the moment where you feel like, somebody should think about maybe pulling the trigger, or like, is there a piece of advice you can give to say like, now's the moment to invest in what you're doing?
I mean, I think it's hard. It's different for everyone. For us, we kind of just gradually got there. Like we didn't take out any loans or anything like that. We just, as we grew and had the money to invest in certain things, that's what we did. Where someone else who maybe put a business plan together and is like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and kind of is just starting right off the hop, maybe would get a loan or something like that to take that next step. But yeah, for us, it was a little bit more of a gradual incline, and then it doesn't feel so risky because you're kind of already proven yourself along the way.
Totally.
So it just kind of depends on your risk tolerance, I guess.
Well, and I mean, that's the sort of smart financial advice actually I would expect to get from somebody with a business and accounting background, is like, if you can do it without taking on debt, do that. Like 100% do that always, every time.
But I mean, also sometimes you need to invest in yourself, right? So we were just 100%. Fortunate that we didn't have to do that.
Absolutely. And again, I don't mean for this to, but growing company makes great stuff. And I think at the end of the day, that's also an important thing to note, that like, I would love if the laser was a tool that prints money. But I mean, it is if you do the background, work like Lindsey and like Growing Company have done, kind of thing, right? You did touch on something a little bit earlier that I want to return to, and Mike sort of mentioned it too. In speaking to the gentleman who came in talking about needing to buy Trotec. Did you notice a difference in quality between sort of what you were getting from the Glowforge in this case, but it could be any laser, and the Trotec kind of thing? Like if you can't depend on the laser necessarily to give you the exact same results every time, how much of a drain necessarily is that? Do you notice sort of a difference in quality being a prime driver towards maybe wanting to make the upgrade?
Oh yeah, and I don't know if it's because of the power of the laser and it takes less, I'm not entirely sure, but a lot of the things that, like when we were cutting wood on the Glowforge, it would get really, really charred. So, I mean, you touch it and then your hands were black. Like I'd go home with like black all over my face because it was just, everything was black. And same thing when we would engrave wood, it would engrave super, super dark. You'd have to wash it and all that. But with the Trotec, it's a much nicer quality around the edge of the cuts. It doesn't leave a residue. Same thing with the cutting board engraves, like it doesn't burn the wood quite like the other laser did. So I definitely notice a difference in that. I think it's very key to make sure everything is clean at all times, because the second it's not clean, things aren't going to cut right. So I think it's important to stay on top of that. But yeah, it is when everything's working right and your settings are good and everything's clean, it is very consistent.
That's such important advice. I just want to double back on what Lindsey just said for the marketing department here at Trotec and for everyone else in the world. A clean laser runs 10 times better than any other kind of laser.
It's like, and I feel like that's the easiest thing that a lot of people don't quite realize. It's
100%.
Like you see, it's not cutting. And it's like, well, because it's not clean.
Did you check the lens? That's always the first thing. I think maybe I'll ask you one more question. I'll let you go, Lindsey. But yes, that's such good advice. And we have heard you also, the webinar on how to clean your laser and how to clean your acrylic grid table in particular is coming. No jokes. That is very serious. Like, they're not easy. This is something, if it can be of help to you guys, we're very happy to do it. I wanted to ask you, the last question I have here on my sheet is about how you choose to market your business. So how important, because you've sort of grown very organically, I think, at least it seems to me, in hearing your story, and then also getting to see, the way that your social media sort of expanded over the last couple of years. How important is marketing to what you do? And also, how do you choose to market? Is it about, word of mouth? Is it principally like social media posts? What do you find the most useful, or for someone in your shoes, what would you recommend maybe?
Yeah, we have a fairly successful Etsy shop. That's been really big for us. We don't typically pay for advertising just because things have organically grown for us. I mean, obviously we put the effort in, we make sure all of our Etsy listings are proper and have all the information they need. And then that tied with our social media and trying to make some connections with some influencers and things like that. I would say that our social media is more local, whereas Etsy is more international. Like we ship, I'd say 75% to the States on Etsy,
Wow.
Whereas I'd say 95% of our sales from social media and our website are local. So we kind of have that balance. I think something that we've tried really hard to do is not seem super crafty. While we are handmade and it is crafting, we try to have our products have like a sleek look that you want to put in your house. And so it is a lot about the image that we're trying to portray. I think that makes a big difference in growing our business as well. I don't know if you can tell, but the vast majority, if not all of our photos are now professional photos. And that's been something that's really important as well, because if you don't have a background in photography, especially when you're selling online, that's how you're selling your product. They can't see it and feel it and play with it. They have to get a good feel. And if your photos aren't quality, it takes away from your product as well.
We actually did a whole webinar on this not 2 or 3 weeks ago because, Lev and I say kind of the same thing. It's not to say that the photography some customers do now is bad, I guess, but it's just to say that, like, I think you put it very well, that like it's the basic expectation for people who are shopping online now is no longer like it's here. Yeah. Like even your Instagram photos have to kind of be at a certain level. And fortunately, like really good camera technology is much more accessible now for the average. Your phone probably has a better camera than, my parents owned in their entire lives, kind of thing. Yeah. But at the same time, that's another area where like a small investment can really make a big difference. I mean, particularly on a marketplace like Etsy, I assume, right? Where, I mean, you have a lot of very talented sort of, people who come from a sort of personalization or like a made at home sort of background. And you want to stand out, right? Like you want to be sure that your business looks a cut above, kind of thing.
Yeah, because I mean, when someone searches for a product, your product comes up, a bunch of other people's product comes up, and really you're just trying to set yourself apart from, the person beside you. So, I mean, if you've got lame photos that have bad lighting and don't really show the quality and the details, they're not going to click on your listing.
Yep. And it's such a shame because we know you put so much hard work into making sure that the product is great.
Right.
And then, if you unfortunately happen to have a bad photo, it can undermine all the hard work you've done to make sure that the product is great.
And with photography, it can be very expensive.
Yes.
But, reach out to someone that does a nice job, see if they'll like swap for product. That's kind of how we initially started out, because it was a big investment to start out with. So we did like a product swap. And then slowly you just realize that it does have, like, you're getting what you need out of the investment. And so you do invest in it, but, try a few different photographers. They all are at different price points. Some new photographers, their price rates are a little bit better and they still do really nice work. So I would just say, try a few different photographers and see if you can find one that works well for you in your budget.
That's great advice.
I had a question. For the last 21 years, I've had customers coming in and saying, "Oh, this laser stuff, is the market saturated?" For 21 years, they've been talking about this. And every time they ask, I'm like, "No, it's not. These machines are tools, and you use the tools for the proper product." Now, when I mention that, is the market saturated? When I talk to a customer, I'm asking you, what do you think of when I ask that question? It's really common.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is. In terms of, I think there's room for everyone. Someone else who does something similar to me, they just make their own twist on it, right? So, I mean, I would never not go into something because you think it's saturated. I think you're just selling yourself short at that point. You need to, put your stamp on it, make it your own. And that's how you succeed at something, right? I mean, there's always going to be competition. And I think you need to obviously be aware of what that competition is and what they're doing. But I don't think you should let that deter you from doing, I mean, wood signs, everybody makes wood signs. Like,
yeah. There's people making, like, everyone who is successful with it is successful with it. Like, you are either successful with it or you aren't. There are people jumping from $2,000 a month to $25,000 a month making wooden signs. Well, if you love that, if that's something that makes you really happy, you're going to work really hard at it. And when you work really hard at it, it's going to show in your work.
Yeah.
And so, I just wanted that the perspective from somebody who is in this industry. Yeah. So it's nice that, the average person will go along with what I'm saying here. But I'm sure Mike gets this question all the time too. Yeah.
And there are so many things you can make, like with the laser. Like your opportunities are almost endless. Well, I mean, that's like almost part of our concern is, are we going to start making too many random things because there's just so many fun things.
I would say your mind is your limiting factor. So
absolutely, yeah. Especially with a laser, right?
Yes.
And your unlimitingness is your limiting factor too, and which Lindsey touched on. If you do everything, you're not going to be best at the one thing.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I would say don't be afraid. Hi, James's mom. Don't be afraid to. I think, Lindsey, you touched on a great piece of advice earlier, which is if you're entering a market that you see the competition out there, give yourself time to find your voice, right? Like if you can do it in a way that is a little bit more risk averse in the beginning and sort of build once you find the thing that that maybe clicks with people, awesome, right? That's a good way, as opposed to just trying to jump in with both feet. The other thing I would say is that don't be afraid of occasionally having a dud, right? I want to show this really quickly here. I just got the wrap it up sign from Lev. Thank you, Lev. I wanted to show this really quickly. This is a Zune. Microsoft made these when the iPod came out. Do you remember them? Nobody remembers them.
I remember the name.
Zune,
yeah. The thing is, Microsoft is one of the biggest companies in the world, and they still face planted on this. It happens to everyone. And the thing is, you just have to find what that thing is that people are gonna know you for, kind of thing. Yeah. And then just double down, triple down on that, as Lindsey and Grown Company have done. Lindsey, we should let you run. Sure. I cannot tell you, we're so appreciative that you came on with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much
for having me.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you back at any time.
For sure. Again, thanks so much, guys.
Good luck,
Company. Yeah. Check them out on Instagram. Check them out on Etsy. They make great stuff.
Thank you. Take
care.
All
the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don, the wrap it up was just we still got some presentation to do.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I wanted to. I just think it's funny.
Well, just a quick point here. I mean, the coasters that I'm doing, I'm using a Speedy 100, almost the entire bed size, and think about it, how long this would take to do on a hobby laser, for example. We've been talking, this is about 20-25 minutes. Yep. We've been engraving this. I'll give you guys the exact time after I'm done, but just keep that in mind.
That's not the fastest machine.
Well, that's not the fastest machine, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no,
doing 6 sets
of
coasters. Doing 6 sets of coasters in 20 minutes on my hobby laser is
it'd be small coasters.
It was going to be
the thing is, how long would it take you to clean everything up?
Yeah.
Right. So
true.
Labor is your most expensive. Labor is your most expensive input for most companies.
Opportunity cost.
Opportunity, exactly.
Yeah.
The more you can eliminate labor, the better it is.
I think when you look at when you're choosing, if you've decided we're going to take the plunge on a laser machine, there's going to be kind of a number of factors that you're going to look at. And I think Lindsey touched on a lot of them, right? We have sort of a slide here that kind of knocks off a lot of the ones that we sort of mentioned to people, or at least we ask people to maybe consider to decide if is the Trotec the right thing for your business, right now. The other thing that I would always caution people towards is, again, why I asked Lindsey about it, how are you thinking about marketing your business? And then, this is a big one. We could do a whole nother webinar on this, but I would encourage you to go check out this video that James put out, the James and the Man episode 10, which is all about how are you going to price your jobs. James, I know I've asked you this before, but I want to come back around to it. What advice do you give to a business that's just kind of kicking things into high gear, like maybe somebody like Lindsey who's just sort of bought their production machine, or, you know, somebody who's coming to you thinking about starting a business, you know, how important is pricing as stacked up to those other areas, right?
Yeah, find out your real costs. Like really sit down and brainstorm with some people you don't know, maybe somebody who's been in business, to find what your real costs are. Once you know your real costs, then you can start to output your real pricing, because a lot of people won't. There's factors that people don't see in pricing. They'll look at somebody else's price and go, oh, I need to match that. Well, that person probably bought a secondhand hobby laser and runs it till 3 a.m. You don't know. You want a life. They're probably hating their jobs because the jobs they get are just not interesting. I know when I had my business, if the job is not interesting to me, I didn't want to do it. And then I slacked off. I didn't do a great job. If it's interesting, if I say, oh boy, you know what? I'm making $265 an hour here. Now I'm interested. It becomes fun. Even if I'm just putting little black dots on a stainless steel tag and it's not an interesting looking job, I'm very interested, because now the money is making it really, really interesting. So you have to price the job to be interesting to you. If it's not interesting to you, switch to something that is. That's basically all there is to it. Find your real costs, price it so you're interested.
Yep. And I think I'm so glad you mentioned that, because again, it's one of those things that you really need to take into consideration. It's one of the things I think that people would look at when they're moving up to a Trotec is, yes, you might be moving to, a $300,000, $500,000 a month lease payment. I don't know. I'm just pulling those numbers out of my head. But if suddenly, if you have a product that you can make 2 of a day, like Lindsey was talking about the cutting boards, right? One cutting board that would take her 45 minutes. If she can now make 4 of them in 20 minutes, right? That's quadruple potentially, right? The amount of money that she can make. So, as Mike said earlier, I think like if you have a laser that you can sort of depend on to sort of set it and forget it in a way, right? Ideally, and I believe it was you, James, who made this, like, it's a machine that should be making money for you when it's running. That's the point of having, at least in a production setting. Again, if you want to buy it and just have it in your garage as like a cool thing, I mean, awesome. So do we. But at the same time, like if you're using it in a production setting, I want this thing to make you money. That's the whole point.
Yeah. I mean, basically, if you're like you can look at it this way. I mean, let's assume that you're making $1.50 a minute, or let's say you're making $2 a minute, whatever. Well, if your machine takes 10 minutes to do the job, that's $20 you're going to make. Now, if you have a machine that does the job in 2 minutes, now you're making $4, but you can push a lot more product, and you may not lower the price, right? So that's the thing, right? So you can make a lot more money when you're producing more product, right? So,
exactly. Well, it's the first machine, maybe you can make, $10 in 5 minutes or whatever, but on the second machine, maybe it only takes 4 minutes, and maybe you can fit 3 of them on the bed, right? Like maybe now you're making $6 a minute kind of thing. That's that's our hope, I guess.
Yeah, I just want to add that slide is only, like Mike was saying, it's up to the Speedy 100. I mean, the 300 and the 400, those are like what Lindsey was having. Those are much faster machines than even the Speedy 100, right, Mike?
Yeah.
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 Not to mention too, again, that I think James and Mike have really spoken to it here. It's important also to find the right machine for you. Obviously, James or Mike would love if everybody who came in wanted to buy an enormous machine, but they're not going to sell you an enormous machine if you don't need one. They're going to try and find the machine that makes sense for you, right? Both on a business level, and then also, I imagine, for you guys, it's a lot of just trying to get a business set up to grow, right? It's like
we need our customers to be successful, and this is what I always say: if we sell a machine that needs very little maintenance, so you're not working on your machine, you're working with your machine, and so we sell you that, and then we give you all the support, like all the videos that we do, and we have dedicated people for materials, dedicated people for tech, dedicated people for training. So we do all we can to make you successful. Without actually standing there and moving your hands for you. We do everything we can to help make you successful. And the reason we do it is because we manufacture the materials that make you guys money. So we manufacture the plastics and all the metals and blah, 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 blah. All this stuff that we make, we manufacture it. So it's in our best interest to make you successful, because then now you're going to be buying plastics from us. You're going to be buying metals. You're going to be buying training from us. And now we're going to make money off of that, but you're going to make money off of that too. So instead of always selling you motors and bearings and belts and electronics and what have you, we want to sell you things that make you money instead of giving you a bill. So it's really, really important that you have somebody backing you like that, who wants you to be successful.
Absolutely.
There's a coaster just for Mike Clark.
No, exactly. Whiskey.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, does it say whiskey? Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Well, I can't tell the focus right now.
It says, whoa, yeah. Well, I would say one from Rip Lev. I would say
sorry guys.
Well, that's okay. One thing I would say that's in this presentation that we didn't necessarily have time to touch on today, but obviously we've done other webinars on, and I would encourage you guys to check it out on our YouTube page, is Calculating Your ROI. That's a whole webinar in and of itself, but that's a very, very important thing to look at, how you're going to do that. And I think Lindsey touched on it, really nicely in saying that, like, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything, particularly in the beginning of your business, right? But it's something I think that, guys like James and Mike, although, you come into it knowing that they have a bit of a bias towards Trotec, obviously, it's literally on James's shirt. But I think, with that in mind, both of these guys have also had their own engraving businesses. So they know, where you're coming from in a lot of cases.
Mike had an engraving business?
Well, Mike worked for his dad, who
that's
remember
right.
Back when we used to have to, we etched everything on stone. Remember?
On stone, yeah.
Remember those conversations?
The tiny pterodactyl inside a stone camera.
Exactly.
Amy was actually asking. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was on a pantograph, which is, you got to put the letters in the tray. You got to put a needle on the letters. You
every time you say pantograph, I think pentagram.
I think what's funny now is that I think in 2021, actually, if you went back to that hand type setting, that would be considered like artisanal and cool.
Probably, yeah.
And you need that long beard again.
The long beard, exactly.
Long beard,
which I can't grow anymore. So
we have so much to talk about. Really quickly, I would encourage you guys also check online. I think James makes a very good point in saying that, like, we really want you to be successful, and I think the reviews that you'll see of Trotec online will speak to that. Certainly, Trotec is not for everybody, but we hope that if it's not your first laser, it can be your second or your third or your fourth. We always hope that you'll come and see us. As Mike said, I think, a demo of a Trotec laser, if nothing else, will help you to see how it stacks up against your current laser.
It's totally free to come
exactly.
see us.
And it's a lot of fun. And I think realistically, even if you decide that, like, hey, you're not ready for a Trotec yet, at least you'll know, the signs to watch for in your business, like Lindsey did, to say, like, now I should maybe pull the trigger on that, because I could be making 6 of these at the same time as I'm making 1 now.
Okay, can I also just add a quick comment? Just 2 things. First of all, Amy commented on these designs. So this I got from VectEasy. So if you go to vecteasy.com or freepick.com, if you're not a designer and you just got your laser, you want to mess around with it, you want to have some cool designs, obviously we can't resell these unless you buy the license to resell these, but you can make them, play around with them. They're cool designs. There's unlimited stuff you could find on VectEasy for free. So that's one thing. The other thing, even the Ray Jets, we do offer lease options for the Ray Jets. So they're a certain amount per month. In terms of a starting laser machine, it's definitely affordable for new businesses. So I did just want to toss that idea out there for people. Definitely.
No, I appreciate that.
I think the thing is that you want to be educated, which is what you're talking about, Don.
Yeah.
Right. The more you're educated, the more you understand, what you're getting into, and you can't be educated unless you actually come in, if you can do a virtual demo or come in and do an on-site,
exactly,
into the showroom, because you'd be amazed how many people come in here and go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could do that. Looking at the sample board, I didn't even think about that. So, 100%. It just opens up the possibilities of what your business can do for you. So
that's exactly right. That's very well said. Yeah. I think the other thing I would add to that too is to say that, consider it this way, like, again, we know that if your business is successful, even if, you don't pick up a Trotec now, you may very well in the future. So look at, the chance to meet with, Renee or Didier, who are our sales representatives in, the other provinces, or James or Mike, as a chance to speak with somebody who has a lot of experience in this industry. If you want to get into an engraving business, you couldn't really pick better guys to talk to than these two who have been around the block and kind of know, what to watch out for. Those sorts of things, like the type of, insights and information that you can get from somebody like James or Mike is going to be, huge, hopefully, in helping to build your business. And again, we want to see you succeed. If you succeed, then we succeed. So
absolutely, Mike
is exactly right. Go online, do your research. I hope you'll check out our YouTube channel. I hope you'll check out the videos that Mike and James have both done. They're always full of really excellent stuff. I hope you'll check out some of the fun videos that Lev and I have done, which are full of like goofs. I think if
you answer that one, if you look at the question on the
just a quick question, Mike. I know you deal a lot with twills.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that you keep what you're doing focused. Like if you're going to cut twill with the Speedy 300, do twill. Or if you're going to cut heat seal letters, do that. Keep it relatively simple so you learn the machine, you learn how to work with it, and then once you've got your 2 or 3 products that you've really focused on, then it makes it easier for you to expand everything out. So, that's what I tend to try to, I suggest to people, don't try to do 30 products, try to do 3 or 4 and be very good at those 3 or 4. If he's putting in his t-shirt business, he's probably doing twill or heat seal letters or things like that. So that's what I would focus on.
I would just add, we have a customer in Windsor, Silver Stitch. They have a big, successful embroidery business. Yeah, and they do a lot of the stuff on their 300. They do a lot of promo items, but then yes, they started, like Mike said, from something from their core products.
One last thing maybe I will throw in here just as like an extra bonus too. Would you have any recommendations for somebody who, again, like you say, maybe not a designer, if you're scanning a super high, high detail image, what is the sort of PPI or the DPI that you could bring it into the laser and still expect like a good quality image without necessarily having to spend, 20 minutes scanning it kind of thing? Can you get by with 100 DPI in a laser, or are you going to need 300 DPI kind of at a minimum?
Depends on the product. Depends on the product, your image and everything like that. I mean, in the lens you're using, I mean, if you want the best quality spot size, you want to use a 1.5 inch lens, but there's no sense using a 1.5 inch lens maybe on oak or something like that. And again, you're going to adjust your photo for the material you're working on and everything like that. So, ultimately there's a lot that goes in. That's why I say, I mean, it's important to learn about some of this stuff. And that's why it's nice to come into the showroom, bring in what what you think you want to do. Some people don't have an idea, but bring it in, because some of that stuff can be answered right away. And you'd be surprised how much that product can be so much better when you're running it on the proper machine. Right. So,
true.
You know what? I think that's a great point to end on. I really appreciate everybody who's joined us today. Thank you all so much for the great questions. Thank you again, obviously, to Lindsey, Grown Company. Absolutely do not miss out. Check them out online. Lindsey and her business partner are very, very talented. They make great stuff. If you guys like to get a hold of James or Mike, if you're in Ontario or you're in BC and you'd like to get a demo, as Mike is saying, I mean, we'd love to have.
Hey, if you're in Quebec, we will take over Quebec, right, Jimmy? You can have Calgary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we already discussed. I mean, Renee.
We'll take over the world
with that guy. Bonjour, bienvenue. You can reach these guys. It's Mike.Clark, as you can see it spelled there on the screen, or James.Minchow at troteclaser.com. Feel free to reach out. We are here to help you guys. And, we hope you'll keep, again, this was a topic that came from you. So we really hope you'll keep submitting topics. We do these live streams to, try and help you guys out. And if there's anything else you'd like to see us cover, again, we're here for you. So with that, for James and Mike and myself and for Lev, thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.